Okay, and hello everyone, and welcome to this Conversation in Careers, part of the Building Life Science Adventures 2022 conference. So my name is Alicia, BD Manager at One Nucleus, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Ed Curry, who is Senior Partner at Transcript, also Head of Medical Affairs and Deputy Head of Oncology. So welcome to the conversation today, Ed. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Alicia. And by the way, I'm one of the senior partners, not the senior partner.
One of the senior, of course.
We have a few, yeah.
Of course. It would be really great if you could kick off the conversation by just telling us a little bit about yourself and how you've got to your current position.
Okay. Well, I'm a pharmaceutical physician, trained in the UK, but I've been based for many years in Switzerland, in Basel, Switzerland. Originally born in the UK in Liverpool, grew up in Liverpool, Manchester, London, and then Scotland for quite a bit of the time. Trained down in London at St Thomas's and did hospital jobs up to senior registrar level at Guy's and King's, and specialized in clinical microbiology, infectious disease. And then sort of got an interesting offer through a former colleague that I'd worked with in the hospital who'd joined Lilly. And in fact, short story, I ended up joining Eli Lilly at the Earlwood European or International Research Center, since unfortunately closed, as an international clinical research physician. So phase 2, phase 3, leading international clinical development programs for anti-infectives. So main project was taking an oral antibiotics from first patient in phase 2 right through completion of phase 3, 6,000 patients, 11 indications, writing of the regulatory reports and submissions, and then into the phase 4 clinical trial program. Also looking after an earlier stage antibiotic injectable, which has since been marketed, and an antifungal. And about the time we were starting the phase 4 program and becoming involved a bit in some of the medical affairs aspects, I actually got an interesting offer from Roche in Basel, and ended up coming over and joining them as global medical director for a new business unit of a global business unit for virology and oncology. So a really interesting portfolio. And spent, in fact, 10 years at Roche, first as medical director, then strategic marketing as global business leader for what turned out to be a very successful oncology product, Mabthera, rituximab. And then actually moved into diagnostics for a while to set up the first pharma diagnostics approach, so personalized medicine, personalized healthcare, and companion diagnostics. So I actually spent about 5 years doing that, and gradually integrating digital and informatic elements to sort of the glue between the pharma and the diagnostics. And that then sort of morphed into also I was acting head of e-marketing for a while as well. So very interesting sort of merger between pharma and diagnostics, which obviously Roche is doing a lot of these days, and personalized healthcare. And around that time, sort of I was doing a lot of interviews of internal departments across the world in Roche for this new approach, and also external partners. And one of them that it was in fact one of the big consulting companies, IBM Business Consulting. They actually then got in touch with me and offered me, come and join us and do similar stuff here, very much on the sort of e-marketing and e-health side. So that sort of kicked off slightly unexpectedly, 10 years actually in big company and private consulting, interspersed with about 5 years in little companies. So I was also in some venture-backed biotechs. And then Paul Branthwaite, who I see has also done an interview with One Nucleus, he actually told me about Transcript during this period, and I thought, oh, okay. And he said, well, would you ever consider that sort of thing? So again, long story short, ended up joining. So I joined Transcript as senior partner, or a senior partner, in 2017. and working across therapeutic areas, but mainly in oncology and infectious disease, also a bit of dermatology, neurology, some of the other areas as well. Particular focus, clinical development and medical affairs, so the key areas of my background. So that's where I've got to now. So supporting clients, particularly in clinical development, medical affairs, and again, oncology and infectious disease particularly, but a bit of other things as well, a little bit of diagnostics, bit of devices, bit of other therapeutic areas.
Wow, that's incredibly extensive, broad experience there. Some very big pharma names as well, as you've mentioned. And yes, Paul Branthwaite is an avid fan of One Nucleus, so we're delighted to have him as a contact.
He was actually he was at your recent conference just before Christmas as well.
Indeed, yeah. Yes, indeed. So I mean, I was going to ask, is your current role where you've always wanted to be? I mean, the journey though is a very dynamic one that you just described. So are you where you want to be, or do you sort of see a future step into a different sort of role? If you can.
No, I think where I am, I'm very, very happy with it. It's great. And did I know always that this is where I wanted to be? Absolutely not. I don't think I could have predicted any of my career moves much in advance. So a lot of them were contacts, discussions, evolutions of things. And opportunities popping up that sounded interesting, which were going off in directions that was interesting. But it was more like a stepwise evolution of what I'd done before, plus new elements each time, but each time doing a bit of what was coming before, but new things as well.
Iterative is the word that comes to mind.
Very iterative, yeah.
Excellent. So it's almost like it's always building on sort of previous experiences. Have you been tempted by any other industries?
Yes, definitely. I mean, as I said, I've been in sort of pharmaceutical. Some of the time was in med tech and devices. Some of the small companies were both in sort of med tech / biotech area. So again, these were potential areas to stay in. Also, the digital area was interesting. So some of the consulting that I did was involved in smart health and digital health. And again, it could have gone in that direction as well. But in fact, with Transcript, it's got a little bit of that, but particularly around with the medical affairs aspects. But it's perhaps a bit more some of the traditional things that I've done before. So it's come a little bit round in a circle of stuff that I've done over the years. So clinical development, medical affairs, perhaps with a bit of elements, as I mentioned, of some of these other things. So a little bit of devices, a little bit of diagnostics, companion diagnostics, a little bit of digital. So it's a nice mixture, but a bit more rooted in some of the traditional things, which are, of course, are very much in demand still by clients.
There is sort of increasing sort of convergence, isn't there, between sort of the digital and the pharma world. So that's quite an exciting kind of evolution within the sector and the industry. So yes, it'd be good to sort of see how that plays out. I'm conscious that there'll be sort of some of our audience will be sort of at the earlier stage of their careers and making decisions around education and what to go for and how far to study. So out of interest, what sort of choices did you make when you were sort of at that stage of kind of building your career, and what qualifications and subjects did you sort of focus on or hone into?
Okay, well, I mean, I did sort of standard school subjects to do medicine, and then got sort of Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery, MBBS at Thomas's in London. I then was specializing in infectious disease, clinical microbiology. So I actually did an MSc then, Master of Science, at the London Hospital in clinical microbiology. So that was a 2-year degree, part-time, so it was spread over 2 years. So mixed in with normal, clinical and research jobs in the hospitals. So got an MSc. I also did the clinical microbiologist part of the pathology set of specialties. So I did the first part of the MRC path, member of the Royal College of Pathologists, and would have, if I'd stayed, would have gone on to get the final and FRC path, MRC path, FRC path, etc. But by then I'd already got this interesting offer to join industry. So I then joined. So with Lilly, then they were very keen. They were one of the companies very keen on the diploma in pharmaceutical medicine of the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Medicine of the Royal Colleges of Physicians in the UK. So they were sort of one of the earlier adopters. And so they actually were keen that everybody was, so I was one of the early people actually going through the diploma in pharmaceutical medicine. So I got, Dip Pharm Med while I was at Lilly. So sort of medicine, scientific degree, first step of specialist degree, and then, pharmaceutical specialization qualification.
So it's,
And
yeah.
then,
oh, sorry.
Yeah. And then since then, no more formal, degrees, but lots and lots of continuing education. So we keep particularly transcript very much up to date with good clinical practice training, and we're having constant training and refreshers all the time. So for the work that we do, we need to be up to speed on regulations and guidelines and just lots of things. So we attend conferences. Continuing medical education, very, very important. So all the partners and employees do a lot of that.
So you're sort of a good grounding was sort of, you started, like you say, in the medicine, and then to specialize that further. That's kind of led you to where you are now, and then that kind of exposure and transition into industry.
Exactly. So I came in into industry through the medical route as a clinical research physician, which is medical advisor. I was in an international group that coordinated the trials around Europe and internationally, but we also colleagues of mine also went into the local country organizations of it might have been Lilly UK, Roche UK, etc. And they would be medical advisors and then potentially medical directors. So a medical career path of scientific medical advisors. Obviously, you don't need to have a medical degree to come into the industry. So a good knowledge of science, a scientific degree. So, and again, in transcript, we have about a dozen physicians, but we also have lots of people with higher degrees in science, PhDs, MSCs, etc. As also senior partners. So. So with lots of experience, so they've come in through different pathways in, but it's sort of converged within consultancy.
Yeah, I mean, just drawing sort of, it's not, the interview's not about me, but sort of just drawing on my own experience. So I've sort of, I sort of went only to sort of a higher degree level, and I did contemplate sort of a PhD. But I think for me, it was once I'd stepped into industry, I kind of found it hard to go back, if I'm honest, unless there was like a particular specific area in which you want to research or make a real difference within. And I guess that's where, focusing and doing a PhD and then moving into a postdoc would help. But yeah, I sort of, once I was into industry, and actually I based my higher degree on experience from industry. So I did a bachelor's in science, went into industry, found something I liked, thought, oh, I'll study that more, went back to do a higher degree. And then after that, sort of, other factors sort of take over in terms of, do I stay in academia or do I go into industry? Sometimes it is just to do with life in general and, sort of supporting yourself and how much, you need to focus on work rather than sort of, well, I'd love to sort of stay in academia and, just kind of research. But yeah, so it's very, like you say, you've got a very dynamic path there. But I guess, obviously, there's challenges along the way. So for you, looking back, you know, where were those kind of moments when you thought, oh, I have to do something different, or, you know, were there any moments where you had to change direction because something didn't work out as planned, or maybe you just had a change of heart in terms of interests and what you wanted to do?
Yes, I guess along the way there were a few sort of inflection points, also where you could go one way or the other. And I remember particularly at Roche, I was doing a great role as, you know, a global business leader role. But at the time got very interested in the companion diagnostics in oncology, and actually made it, you know, some proposals for how perhaps by bringing pharma and diagnostics together better, you know, this could be something you know, that could develop. And so it ended up being a sort of really interesting thing. And you know, I had the opportunity to either stay what I was doing, which was a more traditional career path, really great, or to, you know, leap into the unknown with something that really nobody was doing at the time. There was hardly any activity in the area, and even the companies that are best known for it today were, you know, hadn't really tried this. So it was a leap into the unknown, and I took that. You know, I decided, I had this intense weekend where I had to make my mind up, you know, whether to do this or not. You know, I had two very interesting offers. And plunged for the unknown, and you know, it was a very interesting choice. I sometimes wonder, well, if I'd stayed in more tradition, would it have been better? You know, would I have had a, you know, a very different and an interesting career path within more traditional industry? Don't know. But anyway, that sort of set off a sort of major change, and then I guess as that. And you know, that was very interesting and was going well. I think what came quite quickly that I could see is that in order to really bring pharmaceuticals and diagnostics together for patients for making better treatment decisions, you really needed a lot of sort of information. You need a lot of sort of actually informatics software systems to sort of link the two together. And we actually built some really interesting, very novel stuff and launched that. But that started to accelerate really fast then externally, and you know, I got the impression it was not moving fast enough into this you know, brave new world of e-healthcare. And in fact, that's what prompted then, or made me susceptible to you know, a big tech consulting company saying, come and do that there as well. But again, there, you know, your expectations are not always aligned with what, you know, e-health and you know, more traditional businesses. There's often so let's say a lag time between the two. And so I think one of the things was probably a challenge, having the visions of new business models that were sometimes maybe ahead of their time, and just people are just not quite ready to buy into them. Looking back, these things have all happened, you know, more than expected, but it takes time. So somebody says, you know, often one underestimates how long it takes to get things in the first couple of years, but sort of overestimates how quickly it's adopted quickly, and underestimates how much it's adopted 10 years later. So I think things have come. Probably another one is, you know, again, I've worked in a couple of venture-backed companies in tissue repair and in diagnostics. And you know, a big challenge there, and this unfortunately hit both of them, is running out of money. You know, so you know, very much at the whim of investors. And when you know, the money taps dry up, the companies tend to either shrink to tiny or actually go bankrupt. So that's a challenge. So I've seen that happen. And then in consulting, so either, you know, you have big companies, so you know, you've got the weight of a very big company, but you've got big company systems, processes, bureaucracy, you know, the good and the bad. When you consult for yourself, it's again, can be very interesting. You can really steer your own course, but it's very much boom or bust. So if you've got a good project, it's great, you know. So I did a couple of, you know, nice long-term projects, really interesting ones. But when they've come to a you know, natural conclusion, and you don't have something to go into, you're scrabbling around, or you're trying to, you know, always generate the next thing while you're already doing it. And that's obviously the case in all consulting companies, big and small. But when you're on your own, you're much more exposed. So actually, I think that, and that was what was interesting when Paul sort of said, well, think about the transcript model and talking there. It's a small specialist, I suppose, boutique consultancy with a very good roster of big and small pharmaceutical and biotech and a little bit of other things as well, companies. And the great thing is that, you know, you're part of a team. So when you're on your own, you've only got yourself to sell. When you're part of a team, you can leverage everything you've got, but also work in a team with other people. So you know, you have a team that completes the package. So pretty much anything that a client will bring to us in terms of a challenge, we can address it. So we either internally, also we have a network of external partners, that, you know, trusted partners that we work with, in individuals or small companies. So we can basically put together something that will meet the client's needs in every case. So and that means that you have the security that you can bring what you've got, and other people bring what they've got. So you know, so you might work. So I might be bringing some medical affairs or clinical development experience, but then you've got people who are experts in regulatory and in project management, in commercial, depending on the project, medical writing, drug safety, etc. So people who've come, you know, from their specialization, you all come together, and so you can provide a sort of a balanced offering to either even a big company, even a bespoke team to a big company, or a temporary team to a little company to solve a particular project or phase of the project. So I think those are good things. So probably those are key learnings that have come out. You don't have to be an expert in everything. Each piece that you bring can be part of, you know, also the next step. And on a personal side, it means that you keep growing. You're learning from other people. You're being stretched out of your comfort zone as well. So each project you get involved with, especially if you're a project director, so you're overall responsible to deliver the project to the client. You know, there's lots of things you learn from your teammates and from research and working with the client, so that you're always learning. So the next project like that, you bringing a bit more. So it's constantly learning. So again, people thinking of coming into the industry, thinking of coming into consultancies, you know, you don't have to say, oh, I'm not an absolute expert in everything, or even in one topic. You know, it helps obviously to bring something, but you know, people with well-rounded backgrounds, I think, are particularly valuable.
That's just touching on that, actually, something's just come to me. So it sounds there that you're highlighting the importance of sort of soft essential skills. Obviously, technical knowledge is vital in specific roles. If you're leading on certain projects, or like you say, a director or a medical director, but in a team, having your colleagues with a mix of backgrounds is important. But you know, I think when it comes down to it, we've had this conversation. I think in the conference last year, actually, it came up around the importance of sort of people skills, if you like, and those complement sort of the technical skills. So it's interesting to when so for early career seekers, you know, I think it's important for them to sort of have that awareness and knowledge, because sometimes it could be a bit limiting if you want to go down a certain path and you feel like maybe you don't have the skills or the qualifications. Like there is sort of a basic level, I know, understanding of qualifications you should achieve, but there is also that importance of having a team with people who have, I don't know, adaptability, and sort of like, obviously there's always communication and just flexibility, especially over the past couple of years. We've seen how important that is to be able to sort of adapt and flex. So yeah, and your analysis of different types of companies and roles and sort of the pros and cons. So, you know, a big corporate as opposed or versus to sort of a smaller biotech, then onto a consultancy, or if you're sort of a one-man band. That's really interesting, because there might be some listeners who are sort of wondering, oh, you know, if I go down this route, you know, what do I need to be aware of, or what do I need to think about? So that was fascinating. And then just another thought that came to me, but I guess I wonder, the longer you're sort of in a particular industry or sector, maybe part of it, of what's driving you, is what you desire to sort of see that sector achieve. Do you think that kind of helps to drive sort of where you go? Sort of, I guess it becomes a part of you, doesn't it? You sort of, you know, it drives what you want to see. If for us, it's, you know, in yourself, it's about sort of patient benefit. So that helps to push you forward in terms of the directions that you take, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, I think the pharmaceutical industry is, and consulting, but pharma industry, both of them offer, you know, a lot of different types of roles. I remember when I was, I mean, in hospital, as mentioned, I was a sort of senior registrar in the hospital, and, you know, the next role step up would have been consultant. And, you know, there's obviously other things you can do around that as well. And, but basically it's like one official career step past that. And I remember at the time thinking, ooh, that's a bit scary, actually, you know. Whereas coming across to industry, I felt I was able to come across at a similar level, but almost at the, not at the very bottom of the ladder, but, you know, a quarter of the way up, you know, for example. So you've got lots and lots of things, you know, going up and sideways at every stage that you've got. So there's all sorts of different things for different types of people. So obviously some people just prefer research, very focused. They want to stay in their one therapeutic area, and they can do that either, you know, in academia, but you can also do that in industry. So as long as the company that's you join as you know, in it for the, you know, long enough to be in that your chosen area, you know, there's lots of opportunities there. But again, having said that, things change. You know, a technology fails, a drug fails, the company changes strategic direction. So if you're totally, you know, single skill in one area, you know, there's other companies, that's when you might change to another company. But if you like the company, you might have to change area. So again, the more, you know, having a few more strings to your bow is always good, I think. And you can either pursue it directly within your job, but also around it. You know, with you can be active in different committees, organizations. You can write things. You can, you know, there's lots of other ways also of expressing and staying interested in perhaps relevant side topics or completely different topics, you know, as long as they don't conflict with what you're doing. So I think loads of opportunities. So I think the industry offers you know, lots of different careers for all sorts of different people.
Yeah, it's obviously going back over the past couple of years as well, looking at how buoyant the industry has been, obviously because it's been at the forefront of sort of leading us out of the pandemic. Yeah, it makes you feel, well, I certainly felt very lucky to sort of be within the sector. And yeah, it's a really important point to highlight that it's not sort of just for a laboratory scientist. There's plenty of non-lab scientific roles that feed into that, or, you know, to the research going on, or just functions that sit within any other business, like HR or IT, but they just happen to sit within, you know, the scientific business. But I think sometimes then it is wonderful for that people in those roles to then get a bit of an appreciation and understanding of what the company is doing. And at One Nucleus, we have specific training courses that try to help with that. So if you're sort of a non-science professional in the scientific industry, then yeah, just to get that appreciation of what the company is trying to achieve. So I think my last question is going to be around if you could go back to sort of when you were starting out, so what's the one thing that you would tell your younger self?
I'd say go outside your comfort zone and get as many experiences as possible. So different roles, different countries, yeah, variety, and sort of enrich your experience, and don't be scared to do something different, even if it doesn't feel comfortable. Yeah.
That's brilliant advice. Well, it's been absolutely fascinating to talk to you, Ed. It's been really educational as well. Obviously, your experience in the industry and how it's evolving and changing offers real insight. So, as well as sort of helping those who need guidance on the career, it's been yeah, very educational as well. So, thank you very much for your time. And yeah,
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.